What does gutsy mean to you, my friend?
For the sake of this conversation, I think gutsy means living audaciously, living without liquid courage. The thesis of my book is replacing liquid courage with intrinsic courage. So I would say being gutsy is tapping into your intrinsic courage and trying new things.
Welcome to the Gutsy Podcast, the show where you learn how to own what you actually want and shift the mind junk that's been holding you back. I'm Laura Ora, keynote speaker, coach, and your guide to help you get clarity, build confidence, and make the gutsy moves that change your life. Each week, I'm going to help you simplify things by teaching you how to get out of your head while stepping into action. This way you can achieve all those life shifts that you've been overthinking. Your desire, that drives you. But gutsy, that's what gets it done. Today, we're diving into a topic that's been gaining a lot of momentum lately: sobriety, sober curiosity, and the cultural shift around drinking. Whether you're thinking about cutting back, questioning your relationship with alcohol, or fully embracing an alcohol-free lifestyle, then this episode is for you. I'm joined by Tawny Lara, also known as the Sober Sexpert. She's here to break down the realities of sobriety, mindful drinking, and how to replace liquid courage with intrinsic courage. We're going to be unpacking the myths around sobriety. We're going to be talking about the rise of non-alcoholic drinks in bars and how to set boundaries with people who might not understand or really enjoy your choice. So if you've ever wondered what life might look like with less alcohol, or maybe not at all, then this conversation is going to give you plenty to think about. Tawny is a writer, public speaker, and mental health advocate whose work focuses on sobriety, sex, and relationships. She's the author of Dry Humping, a guide to dating, relating, and hooking up without the booze, and the co-host of the award-winning Recovery Rocks podcast. She's been reporting on mental health and sex positivity since 2015 and is also the co-founder of the vinegar-based botanical beverage Parentheses. And her latest project, the Sobriety Deck, is a tool to help people navigate sobriety one day at a time. Now, one really important factor that you're going to hear Tawny dig into is the importance of having community, knowing that you are not the only one going through this journey. And one of the most powerful things about being in the Gutsy Collective, which is my community for women, is that while each woman is on her own journey with her own unique challenges and desires, in the Gutsy Collective, they're no longer doing it alone. In every single one of our live sessions together, when someone shares their unique story, and they get some hot seat coaching on the spot, there are so many heads nodding, raising their hand, relating to, because while their stories and their journey may not be the same, the feeling is. There's power in knowing that you're not alone. When you join, you are not only welcomed with open arms, you are immediately folded in as if you've been here all along. It's time to get the support that you're craving. Go to lauraora.com, click on the Gutsy Collective, and sign up today. Hey, Tawny, welcome to the Gutsy Podcast.
Hello, my love. How are you?
Oh, I'm so excited to have this conversation. Listen, you've written a book where I think that you may have nailed the best title of all time, like Dry Humping, and knowing that you talk about sobriety, you talk about sex positivity, you talk about having courage without needing the liquid. So when I saw your book title, I was like, I need this woman in my life today, like right now.
Here I am. I just appeared as soon as you said that, right?
You literally did. Poof, here you are in my email and now here on the Gutsy Podcast. So we're talking about something today that I think is really becoming kind of a thing, which is, in my opinion, a great thing, which is sobriety, or being sober curious, or being a more conscious drinker, right? Like I don't know. I just feel like people are not just like slamming shit down the way that we used to. And I don't know what has changed or evolved in the last I do kind of know what's changed or evolved, or I'm kind of curious, what have you seen that has started to like make people question things and change the whole scenery around drinking?
So for context, I quit drinking November 30th of 2015. So, 9.5 years ago. And since I quit drinking, I've documented in real time, as a person in recovery and as a journalist, I've documented this, sober curious, mindful drinking movement while being a part of it. So I've seen a lot. I've seen the rise of the non-alcoholic drinks. I've seen restaurants and bars having non-alc menus. I've seen, you know, all these recovery options that are not focused on AA or needing to identify as an alcoholic. So it's mind blowing to really think about everything that's changed over the last decade. And like you just said, I think the sober curious movement gives people a word to use. Like, I don't know that I want to give up alcohol forever. I don't think I'm an alcoholic, but I definitely want to cut back on booze, or I want to drink a little bit less, or I want to take a few months off. We have words for that now. We have resources for that now. Where when I quit drinking, it was like you go to AA and you identify as an alcoholic, or you keep drinking. And those are the only two options. Now we are in more of that gray. And I think that I honestly think it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's really cool to see. So I unintentionally stopped drinking in, gosh, what year was that? Probably 23. I don't even know the date or the time, or I'm not even certain that it was either 22 or 23. Um, during COVID, I drank so much. I mean, it was a coping mechanism. It helped me to get through the day. It was an escape,
Yeah.
right? I know that, our listener right now is probably nodding her head like, yeah, I'm familiar. I get it. And it really took a toll on my body, and it's silent and it's sneaky. And then all of a sudden you wake up one day and you're like, how am I so sluggish and heavy and put on weight, and my mental health has just taken a shit. And like, I don't know, I just started to not want it, which I thought
Yeah.
was really interesting. Like my body literally did the work for me, which I'm actually really thankful. It's one of the things that I've not taken such a hard path to like change in my life, because my body did it for me. So at dinner,
Mm.
instead of having 2 glasses of wine, I would start to only have one. And then I would tell my husband, oh, just pour like a half a glass. I'm not really sure that I want that much. And then it was like a quarter of a glass and I wasn't even finishing it. And then I remember one night he's like, do you want your wine? And I was like, I don't really think so. And it was just, that was it. Like I just literally have no taste, no desire, no craving for it. And now even being in social settings where a lot of drinking is happening or whatever, I don't know, I just feel so much more awake to what's
Mm.
happening. So I'm kind of curious, what was your journey like to get to the decision to become sober?
Yeah. I mean, congrats for you.
Thanks. Yeah.
It sounds like it was a very, I'm like the word on my tongue is like non-decision, but like it was like an involuntary decision. Your body was like, I'm good.
It was very organic. Yeah, it literally started to reject it. And anytime I've tried to drink since then, I might get a sip or two in,
Yeah.
and it's like, no, I just literally don't want it.
I love hearing stories like that because I think it brings nuance to, the old tired adage of you have to hit rock bottom and lose everything before you decide to stop drinking. You don't have to. I think your story is a testimonial to that. And I think mine is as well. When I say I quit drinking on November 30th of 2015, it was a very mild drinking experience. I was a bartending party girl, like dance on the bar, you like, woo, chugging whiskey from the bottle. Like I was that girl. Then I moved to New York City and I really wanted to focus on my writing. And I did. I found myself drinking less. Like I was no longer around my bartender friends. I was in New York City and I'm taking writing classes and I'm hanging out with people who have one drink instead of five. And it was just all so new to me. And I remember sitting in a pub. It's Finelli's Pub. I'm not being paid to say it. It's a cool historical pub in Soho. And I had like 3 or 4 beers with some friends, and I was like talking about how I don't have enough time to write. And I left the pub that night and I was like, I just spent 4 hours in a pub talking about how I don't have time to write. Maybe there's, a connection here. And so that next morning, I woke up, I looked in the mirror. It was like very cinematic and I loved the drama. I was like puffy. Uh, my skin was splotchy and red, and I had yesterday's mascara flaked on my cheeks because, of course, I didn't wash my face. And I was just like, I looked in the mirror. I was like, I don't think this whole party girl thing's cute anymore. And I decided my 30th birthday was coming up. And I was like, what if I just don't drink my whole 30th year? I was like, I'm just going to take 1 year off. I'm going to blog about it. Again, 2015, blogging was the cool thing to do.
Absolutely, it was.
Instagram was barely a thing. Um, and so I just started blogging about it and, questioning my relationship with alcohol publicly. We didn't have the word sober curious yet, but that's definitely what I was. And the longer I went without alcohol, the more time I spent in therapy and I addressed the role alcohol played in my life, which was self-medicating. I got my mental health diagnoses. I learned healthy coping mechanisms. We're coming up on 10 years and I'm still learning new coping mechanisms, we say one day at a time for a reason. But I think it's great that you shared your experience and then hearing mine. It's like, I hope listeners understand there's no one way to, be in recovery or be sober curious. Just it sounds like we both listened to our bodies and we followed.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people just kind of get to this point where I don't know, I can't do this to myself anymore. It's like a self-realization, a wake-up call, I don't know, a switch, right? And sometimes it's hard and right in front of you, and sometimes it's a little bit more passive and just kind of happens organically. But I think being sober curious, and actually, can we define what that
Yeah,
is? Like,
yeah,
how would you define sober curious?
absolutely. So I would define, well, let me back up a bit. The term sober curious was coined by Ruby Warrington in 2015 in like New York City, like in these circles, but it didn't become like a global thing, like a household term till a few years later when her book came out. Um, and so I would say sober curious is just being curious about your relationship with alcohol. You're just curious about it. And I would say that, there's sober curious. There's also, mindful drinking, which is like people being mindful of of their relationship with alcohol. I love words and definitions. So like in my book and my card deck, there's glossaries. So like when you ask me to define something, I'm like really excited about it.
Yeah, I like that we have this array now, this I want to call it this beautiful spectrum, right? Because like you mentioned earlier, back in the day, it was you're either sober or you're an alcoholic. And there was no in between, but there was an in between. It just wasn't um it just wasn't spoken about
it,
that way,
it
right?
wasn't spoken about. Yeah. And there's also like, there's people who have been, sober for, a chunk of time and then they've worked on their shit. And then they've realized, you know what? I can have a glass of wine every once in a while. I can smoke weed every once in a while. Like these have also been happening, but not talked about. And I think it still is a little taboo to talk about those things, which is why I like to shine light on them. But these things happen. None of this is linear. Everyone's relationship with substances is so deeply personal, and you can't compare your relationship with alcohol to someone else's relationship with alcohol because it's just so different.
Yeah, and what's coming to mind is, some people need and want and thrive on having the label. So saying I am sober can be incredibly empowering and forward thinking, and just a version of self control for a lot of people, that especially if they've struggled with substance abuse, right? Like having that is like a badge of honor. Like, yes, I am. What I found for me, and this is where that spectrum comes into play, was that label actually like terrified me,
Mm,
because it made me feel like, well, if I wanted to have a glass of red wine with a steak at dinner, now I have broken a
yeah.
rule, right? Now I've gone against what I'm talking about or what I stand for. And so it put me kind of in a harsh box that almost made me more anxious, which is it's all psychological, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, I think I fall in that category of mindful drinking, sober curious, because if I feel called, I allow myself to experiment.
Yeah.
But I know the difference now between drowning out emotions and self-sabotage and avoidance and all of those unhealthy mechanisms, where now, like you said, mindful drinking, it's like that's mindful drinking, like being really aware of those things.
I think that is where like the bridge from sober curiosity to mindful drinking is like, I would say you're sober curious, like you do dry January every year. You're probably sober curious, right? But you do, let's say you do dry January and then you're like, it lasts for like 6 months and you're like feeling really good. And then it's like those 6 months have completely changed your relationship with alcohol. And now you're super mindful and you're like, I only have red wine when I have a steak because it's not self-medicating. It actually, you understand that the wine and the steak work together. And it's like, it's, pairings are a really cool experience to have. So I would say that's a really solid example of mindful drinking. And I'm just so glad we have words for this now without the stigma, even just a few years ago, this still happens, but just saying I'm not drinking right now, it would cause just friends would be like, why aren't you drinking? Now there's a little bit more acceptance, I think, where it's okay to do a dry January. It's actually very normal to do a dry January. And I'm happy to see that change.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That brings up a good point though. I think some of the like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this, can I do this, is that kind of external pressure, right? I mean, drinking is still in a lot of our commercials. It's in almost every single bar or restaurant that we go to. How do you recommend people kind of navigate that, like, hey, I'm really trying to shift some things with my health, but my friends and family are giving me that pressure, or I'm just feeling awkward when I go to situations and like now I'm the only one not drinking.
So I will say the book definitely has conversation starters, sample conversation templates for exactly that, because this is one of the biggest questions that I get is like, my friends are still drinking, but I don't want to miss happy hour, or I want to stop drinking, but my husband still drinks. How do I like just because you stop drinking, the world still happens. People's around you are still going to drink. So I think it's super important to like this is going to sound really like woo-woo self-helpy, but like understanding your why, like why are you taking a break from alcohol right now? And even if it's just tonight, why are you taking a break from alcohol tonight? And just getting super clear and honest with yourself about that, because that can help you in those moments of, if someone offering you a drink at a party, if you're not really solid on your why, you could very easily be like, yeah, I'll just have one, you know? So understanding why you're doing something in general, not just sober curiosity, but why you're doing something, I think is only going to be more helpful. And then the more you understand that, then you can communicate that with your loved ones. I also say in my book, not everybody needs the full life story of why you're giving up booze. But there are some people who, your partner, your close friends, your family, you do want to share this to when you feel comfortable. You can let them know. Um, and then setting boundaries of like, some people are like, I don't drink, but my husband does, and there's just no alcohol in the house. That's that's what works for us. And it's so like I said, it's just so personal. So if you could figure out what it means to you, then you can actually advocate for those boundaries.
Yeah, absolutely. And I find too that when you go down this path, you inevitably end up influencing at least one other person in your circle to be kind of curious as well. Because when your skin starts looking better, when you're
Yeah,
sleeping better, when you're talking about things going well, right? Like when you're feeling good in your skin, things are going better at work, people notice that shit.
they
Like they're
do.
they're like they're like, what's going on? Oh, Tawny's not been drinking the last 6 months. Maybe that has something to do. Oh, maybe I want some of that for me. Like I don't know. I just think that's really cool.
It's true. And I mean, I would even say the reason that I did this year-long social experiment was to focus on my writing. And I was writing regularly. I had some viral blog posts get picked up by, Huffington Post and Refinery 29. Then I broke into the freelance writing world. Now I wrote a book. So it's like, and I sometimes get really like I get emotional thinking about everything that I have today is because I stopped drinking. I met my husband in an AA meeting. Like everything I have is because I took a leap. I tried something new. That's another way to think about it. If you're overwhelmed by the language and the societal meaning behind alcohol use, like I'm just going to try something new. I'm going to try not drinking tonight, or I'm going to try only having one drink tonight.
That, my friend, is how I would sum up a gutsy move.
Ooh, look at that.
Like point blank, like that is how I would define a gutsy move, is being curious and then allowing yourself to take an action. I mean, take away all the stuff,
Yeah.
right? If the boxes are too much, put them away. If the labels are too much, put them away. If you literally listen to your body and trust yourself and move forward with that, it will guide you. I mean,
Yes.
you are being called to write, someone else might be called to feel better in their skin. They might feel called to go back to school, like whatever it is that you're feeling called to do, like let yourself be curious about that and then make that gutsy move, which is simply one next step.
Absolutely.
You didn't go from drinking to all of these things overnight. It's been a series of time and events and continuous gutsy moves along the way.
Absolutely. And I mean, yeah, I mean, that really like leads us into like the whole liquid courage conversation of like realizing that one of the big things that alcohol played in my life was not just, it wasn't just self-medicating of like my insecurities and anxiety and, PTSD. It was like I was legitimately outsourcing my confidence to alcohol. Like I relied on liquid courage to have an uncomfortable conversation with a friend or family member, to talk to the cute guy at the bar. Like I needed liquid courage to do everything. And in my book, I make this, it's kind of a leap, but stick with me. I talk about in Dumbo how he thinks he needs the feather to fly. And then he learns that he doesn't need the feather the whole time. That is literally how I felt, where I was like, oh my God, I thought I needed alcohol to have good sex. I thought I needed alcohol to be flirtatious and confident. And then I realized that I didn't need it this whole time. I felt like I was like, I'd been lied to, I was like, I need to tell everyone about this. This liquid courage thing is a facade. Like it is actually bullshit. It's not real.
Yeah. I always found that I love that example with Dumbo, by the way. I'm totally with you there. I always found that, when we're talking about liquid courage, those couple of drinks that have gotten you to that place is actually just tapping into who you are outside of everything else, beyond the worry, the concern, the, how do I do this? Am I capable? There's something about alcohol that just strips that away and it gets you down into your core. So the goal here is to not need the liquid
Mm-hmm.
to get down into the core. So how do you start to find that courage within yourself so that you don't need that liquid to get you to that place?
Yeah, so the first chapter of my book is called Dating Yourself for that exact reason. Whether you're single, whether you're in a long-term relationship, I think this applies when you're evaluating your relationship with alcohol. It's really important to figure out who you are outside of alcohol, societal norms, everybody inviting you to a drink, figuring out who you are. For me, that meant I took a lot of classes. Like I said, I took writing classes, I studied Spanish, I volunteered. I had all this extra time, when you're not drinking and then recovering from a hangover from drinking, you have a lot more time and you have more money. So I just got involved. I was new to New York City, so I was like, I just like explored the city. So for me, taking classes and learning about myself as a new Yorker helped me feel more confident. Like getting better at writing made me feel more confident. Learning more Spanish helped me feel more confident. So I would then bring that confidence to dates. I would bring that confidence when having, when catching up with friends or family, or any time that I thought I needed liquid courage, I would remember all of these things that I'm this new version of myself, or maybe this version of myself that's been there the whole time, that's been hiding behind booze. She's finally here. She's not pretending or performing anymore. And it takes time. I think that that's why people don't do what I just said, because it takes time. It's a hell of a lot easier to take a couple shots of tequila and feel that bravado instead of doing the work to actually cultivate real confidence.
If there's something that you've been wanting to try or a change that you've been wanting to make in your world, but you just can't seem to gain traction, then the Gutsy Collective might just be your right next step. Our newest member shared with me, she's like, listen, Laura, there are things that I know that I want and need to do, but I can't seem to do it. I feel really alone. There's no one to bounce ideas off of. And I find myself talking myself out of stuff before I even get started. She joined on a Friday, and that next Sunday was our live group session together. This is where members get real-time coaching on the spot from me. And immediately after the session ended, she texted me this: I'm so grateful to be a part of this community that you've built. I know I'm very new, but I already feel so great after that first session. The connection, insight, and support was really lovely, and it feels like exactly what I've been looking for. Listen, if your spidey senses are going off and saying, yep, that's what I'm looking for too, then go to lauraora.com, click on the Gutsy Collective, and join today. It really does get to be that easy. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's instant gratification, right? You see the results immediately or shortly thereafter.
Really quick.
Very quickly, especially with tequila. Ooh, the one thing, sidebar, one thing I don't miss about drinking is the regret the day after. The mental regret of the things that I said or that I did or how I showed up or how I acted. I don't miss feeling like that. So, we're in a very fast-paced society where instant satisfaction is wanted, is needed. It's been groomed. We want something, we can order it quickly. We want to see something, we can look it up. We want to find something or research something, it's literally in our pocket. So, drinking kind of goes along with that. And to your point, change takes time and people don't have patience. But what do you want more? And that gets back to what you were saying about, you have to get to know yourself. What do you want more?
Yeah.
Do you want that quick win, or do you want something that's sustainable?
I mean, it's like, you know this. It's like, it's really choosing your level of difficulty. Like for me, getting drunk and then being hungover and then dating the same assholes and then letting them treat me like shit and then not doing anything about it and then getting drunk and causing a scene. That was a level of difficulty that I was comfortable with. I chose that because it was just easier to stick with it, right? Yeah, getting sober it's hard. It's really hard. Being sober curious is really hard. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. But again, it's like, which difficulty are you going to choose? Are you going to choose this more empowering, like I'm taking control, I'm not going to let this thing control me anymore? Or are you just going to stay in these self-destructive patterns? And I'm not saying everyone who drinks alcohol has a self-destructive pattern. I am not anti-alcohol by any means. It does not work for me. I know many people who can have a glass of wine every once in a while or even every day and be fine. That just wasn't me. So I also want to be very clear that I'm not anti-booze.
Absolutely. Well, and I love that you said that because everyone is on such their own journey. And so if you have it in a way that's mindful, like you mentioned earlier, it's not negatively affecting you, your life and your health, no one's stopping you.
Yeah.
You're allowed to do what works best for you. And I think that, we don't give ourselves long enough to feel the benefits. Right. And I think that happens with any shift or change. And whether you're trying to go completely sober or you're just trying to get to more mindful drinking or whatever shift that you're feeling called to do, if you do it long enough, then you start to see and feel the benefits. But it's that kind of sticky period in the beginning where it's new and it's different and it's uncomfortable and everyone's going to the bar and everyone's doing happy hour after work. And it's that kind of messy, I call it the messy middle, where
Hmm.
people usually are like, screw this, I'm out. So, what do you recommend when they're kind of still in that early phase when there's a lot of influence around them?
So I think this is a really good time to mention the importance of peer support, mental health support. You don't have to go to AA. You don't have to, do the 12 steps. Um, Even though it's funny, I met my husband in an AA meeting because I've been to literally like five, but he was at the one that I needed to go
He
to.
was that the
He
one
was
you
at
needed
the
to be
one.
there?
But like there is something to say that like you cannot do this alone. Like that's a fact. You cannot do this alone. You need peer support. If you can afford therapy, if you could like any sort of mental health support or peer support is going to make this easier. Because during those moments when life gets hard or you're feeling tempted, you need someone to call. You need someone to text. So even if it's just like an accountability buddy where it's like, hey, let's do this for a month, let's hold each other accountable. At the very least, start there. But I would also just Google like, sober or alcohol free peer support because there's so many online cool options like I would like Sober Black Girls Club if you're a woman of color looking for support. The Learning Club, or the Luckiest Club, Laura McCowan. She's another sobriety author. Like there's some really good stuff out there. Um, and yeah, I would just don't go it alone. I know I said it like 10 times, but I think we can get so stuck in our heads and think that we're the only person struggling with this thing, whether it's alcohol or anxiety or depression or PTSD or whatever it is. We can feel like we're alone and then we isolate and then we end up going back to that thing, right? So if you could have someone that you can reach out to, that that is sometimes a life-saving, game-changing tip. You need a buddy.
Absolutely. The buddy system goes a long way. And a quick search on Facebook for a Facebook group.
Yeah.
I mean, you could instantly be plugged into thousands of people
Mm-hmm.
that are on a similar journey. I love those creators. We'll make sure that we tag those in the show notes below too, because I think it's just great to have resources to know, like, because I think sometimes people are just like, okay, I don't even know where to go. Right?
Yeah.
Like, where do I start?
And even like I got into this during the pandemic. I would go to some peer support meetings. Like Al-Anon is great. It's like AA, but for codependency, which is a big thing for me. So Al-Anon is a peer support group that helps people who feel like they're responsible for someone else's addiction. Like they need to, codependency is really fun. Anyway, during the pandemic, I would attend these virtual Al Anon meetings, just camera off, and I would listen and I'd go for a walk. And, people have it in their head that, like, if you go to a support group, you're going into a church basement, you're sitting in a circle, you're around a bunch of people that aren't like you. And that's not the case if you do decide to go IRL. But I will say, trying a virtual peer support meeting, camera off, is a really good way to dip your toes into finding peer support. Free, no risk. Just log out if it's not for you. But try a few. There's virtual AA, there's virtual smart recovery, there's just Google, I promise. And even like uh listen to audiobooks, listen to podcasts. Like there's just if you're feeling like you're alone going through this, I could give you like 100 resources to prove that you're actually not, and someone else is looking for that support too.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you say is, I mean, resources and getting a buddy is phenomenal. What would you say or recommend to somebody that's like just at the beginning of this journey? What's one next step that you would recommend to help them make this move in their life? To cut back drinking, to eliminate drinking, just to make that shift in their world.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely get super clear on your why, whether that's through journaling, through calling a friend, or talking to a therapist about it, or meditating on it, whatever makes sense for you. Get really clear on why you're doing this. I would also encourage you to be really, really kind to yourself during this time because it's a big lifestyle change. It's a really big lifestyle change. So whatever that means, like if that means filling up your cabinets and your fridge with your favorite snacks, you know, great, do that. If that means, you know, letting a couple people that are close to you, letting them know, hey, I'm not going to drink for a little while. Please keep inviting me to things, but I'm not going to drink. Or maybe you just want to be alone for a little bit, you know, like, hey, I'm going to lay low. I've got to work on some shit, you know, like, but that again, I think that all goes back to figuring out your why, because then you'll know what your soul needs. Just like you did with like slowly reducing your wine intake, you were listening to your body. And I think a lot of people don't slow down enough to listen to their bodies.
Yeah, that's the thing. Listen to your body. It is forever communicating with you. We just run too fast to stop and listen to it. And stop in each moment. It's not about one big change. It's
Yep.
often those little micro moments where you just pause and check in. Someone's offering you a drink, pause and check in.
Yes.
If someone's inviting you out to a social event, pause and check in. Just it's those little tiny simple things. We want to make everything way more complicated than it needs to be.
Yeah.
Just something as simple as pausing for 5 or 10 seconds and checking in is enough to let you clock back into your why,
Mm-hmm.
so that you can make a conscious decision instead of falling off the bandwagon.
Absolutely. It's tricky. I mean, I will also be really candid and share that, you know, when you change your relationship with alcohol, it can be really confronting to some people in your circle. You know, it's
Yeah.
I've seen relationships end because of this. I've seen friendships end personally, you know. Um People feel very confronted. Let me back up. People who feel a certain way about their own relationship with alcohol feel very confronted when someone gets sober or even just doesn't drink for the night. And you might get some people that you think have your best interest at heart actually find out that they don't. Um, Learning the difference between a real friend and a drinking buddy is really painful. Um, so I want to be very transparent that that is part of this journey. And it's not just alcohol. It's like if someone gets super into CrossFit in a relationship, sometimes it doesn't work out because you've changed, right? You have changed something fundamentally about yourself. And that's not always going to jive with the people that are already in your circle. And that's actually a good thing because life is about growth. It's about evolution. It's about getting to know who you really are and not people pleasing to try and be this version of yourself that you think you should be. And alcohol makes all that a lot easier.
Yeah, people get used to that version of you.
Yes. And then you're like, you don't even know who the hell you are. I'm still unpacking it after, you know, years of pretending to be somebody else for other people's benefit. You know, I just can't twist myself into a pretzel anymore.
Yep, it's non-negotiable. I think something that is really cool that I've just been noticing and witnessing here, especially in the last 2 years or so, is this increase of non-alcoholic like mixers and drinks and menus at restaurants and even fully dry bars. Like now there are sober bars, which I think is really, really cool. And I think that sometimes when you think about not drinking, it's not the drink that we miss, it's the social interaction that comes along with it.
Yeah.
Casually getting together and going to a winery, right? And spending the afternoon there. Like there's just a social aspect that I think that we miss. Are you seeing that these kind of cocktails and mock bars and all that are kind of rejuvenating that, or how do you see that playing?
I could talk your ear off about this, Laura, because my husband and I co-founded a non-alcoholic drink. So
Amazing.
I can talk about it from manufacturing, from societal perspective. But I will also say that even just the 10 years ago when I quit drinking, there was the only NA option was O'Doul's or Shirley Temple, you know,
Yeah.
and the fact that most restaurants now have a non-alc menu with actually like several options that are pretty decent, not just like
Really
not
good.
just sugar bombs, not just a non-alc pina colada, like pretty good non-alcoholic beers and drinks. I never in a million years thought that would happen in my lifetime. So I think it's amazing. And being in New York City, we have four non-alcoholic bottle shops and several non-alcoholic bars. So just the fact that I know that I could go to these places and not be around drunkenness is amazing. And I could still socialize because you're right. What we think we miss is actually a lot of times it is the socializing or even the ritual. I love buying a bottle of non-alcoholic wine, opening it, pouring it into nice wine glasses. That's enough for me. I really like that ritual. I realized I actually didn't need the alcohol for that. And there's also some people who, are very triggered by the non-alcoholic drink movement. If you drank a lot of wine before and non-alc wine feels triggering for you, don't even go there. I'll also say 70% of people who shop non-alc, that means goes to bars, goes to non-alc bottle shops, buys non-alc in regular bars, they still drink alcohol. 70% of people who shop non-alc still drink. So I actually am obsessed with that because I think it shows that we as a society are embracing this movement. It's not just a trend. It shows that people just want interesting non-alcoholic drinks, whether they're sober or in recovery or not. Like you said, health, body changes, medications, religious, faith-based reasons. There's just so many reasons that people don't drink alcohol, and they're finally being marketed to.
Absolutely. It gives you options. I compare this and I think back to when I first went gluten-free, gosh, 12 years ago. Girl, the options were
Yeah.
shit. Bread tasted like cardboard and it was like the size of my fist. Like if it were completely closed, like this
Yeah.
4x5 little tiny piece of bread. Restaurants were a no-go, right? There were just no options. And now, I mean, there's not too many places that I can't go,
Yeah.
when we're going out to eat. I still have to be conscious and map things out and all that, but I have options and it just makes lifing that much easier. And I think that that's what these options are doing. It's just making life easier for people to continue to go out for a happy hour, but now we're doing it in a different way, right? There's not just one way to do socializing. There's not one way to get together with friends. There's so many different options.
Yeah. And to answer a couple questions ago, I would say, you know, use these places. Like if you and your friends normally go to happy hour and you guys still drink alcohol, just go to one of these. Just go to a sober bar, just try it out. Have one drink there. Like just try, like you said, make a gutsy move, try new things. If it's not for you, fine. Who cares? You had a good time and you supported an indie brand. So just I literally I sign my email signature as just try new things. That's I wish everybody could just try more things.
I mean, that's how we have found everything that we love in our life currently,
Literally.
by trying something new along the way.
Oh, that's such a good point. And yeah, I could go off on that, but you're right.
All right. So to round us out, you have this really cool deck called the Sobriety deck. Am I correct? Tell me a little bit about that and how that's helping to support people with their sober curiosity.
Yeah, you are. So we have the Sobriety deck. My podcast co-host Lisa Smith and our podcast is called Recovery Rocks, and we've been podcasting since 2018. I cannot believe it. So we've distilled all of these regular, recurring conversations, recurring questions, all these top topics. We've put them into a card deck form. It's called the Sobriety deck. And here, I'll show you right here. Is she gorgeous?
Stunning.
So I describe it as like tarot meets sobriety self-help, where, not everybody wants to read a book, or even maybe you just want to pull a card. But the deck is divided into 5 categories. So like relationships, knowing yourself, putting yourself out there, whatever you're struggling with that day, or whatever you want some guidance on, you pull a card. You can reflect on the imagery. You can look at do the journal prompt or a meditation prompt. But everything in this deck was designed to get you to think critically about your relationship with alcohol, but also reminding you to be really nice to yourself and acknowledging that this is freaking hard. This lifestyle change is really difficult. And if you're white knuckling and just doing it alone, you're not going to get anywhere. And it's a reminder of resources, community support, but really most of these resources are what we already have within us. And I know that sounds a little like kumbaya, but it's real. Like we were saying about liquid courage. Liquid courage is false because it's actually just activating this desire that's already within us, right? So I feel the same way about this card deck, is that it just gives you a chance to reconnect with who you are.
Oh, I love it. Love it. Well, I want to make sure everyone knows where to connect with you, get your book, get this deck. Where can everyone find you?
I think the best place is my Substack. I am like phasing out social media. I am very happy on Substack. So it's actually my website, tawnylara.com. The book is called Dry Humping, Sobriety Deck. My non-alcoholic drink is called Parentheses. And my weekly newsletter, I talk about entrepreneurship and publishing. And I also teach classes. I teach book deal classes, publishing, PR courses, all of the things. So I'm a tired Capricorn and I have a lot going on.
A tired Capricorn. I love that. You need a t-shirt that says
I
that.
do.
Tawny, I got to know, what does gutsy mean to you, my friend?
I, for the sake of this conversation, I think gutsy means living audaciously, living without liquid courage. The thesis of my book is replacing liquid courage with intrinsic courage. So I would say being gutsy is tapping into your intrinsic courage and trying new things.
I think one of the most important things to remember from this episode is that no two journeys look, sound, or feel the same. The choice to drink or to not is a personal journey, and it doesn't have to look or sound like anybody else's. And remember, if a sober community is what you are craving, make sure to check out the links in the show notes. Tawny shared some amazing resources with us today. I'd love to know what really stood out to you or was an aha moment for you today. So connect with me and send me a DM on social. I'm at that Laura on all social platforms. And of course, my friend, until I see you next time, stay gutsy.